D. Mace Fingen and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership. Great start to the show, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. We're all together again. Willie is no longer in Dallas, so he is no longer Willie Big D Donick. He's just Willie Donick again. Just Willie.
See?
I forgot to turn my mic to the
I call him Willie. Oh, Willie Little T.
I don't think Willie wants to be known as Willie No T Donick or Willie Low T Donick.
Low T. Well, there's places you can go if you have low T.
Willie Low T.
I mean, D-Mace talks about where you can go if you have low T.
Absolutely. Cool Springs. Go over to Cool Springs MD.
It'd be a big change going from Big D to Low T. But Willie is back. Thankfully, we're all here together on a Friday. So I found this to be interesting. And Willie, you have placed a little bit of a side bet on our program for what happens later today on this station. But 2 days ago, Teron Davenport, of course, our friend and ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, tweeted out that the Titans will have Denard Wilson, Mike Borgonzi, wide receiver coach Tyke Tolbert, among others, at Colorado's Pro Day, which is today, but not Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan. They've already done extensive work on Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. They'll see Sanders at a private workout on April 9th. Not too long ago, from Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated, the Titans have president of football operations Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, Reggie McKenzie, Nick Holtz, Denard Wilson, and college scouting director John Salge, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Boulder for Colorado Pro Day. Brian Callahan will be there on Wednesday with a lot of the same guys back when the Titans work Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter out privately. So it wasn't expected that Chad Brinker was going to be at Colorado's Pro Day. Now, according to Albert Breer, he's at Colorado's Pro Day. I just wanted to point that out. That's it. I have nothing to add.
I mean, you don't have anything to say, Willie? I mean,
do you want to share what the side bet is?
Well, this type of thing does not really move the needle for me one way or the other. You know, you have months to evaluate these guys. I'm sure by the time they draft, they'll know everything that there is about all these guys.
Just because Brian Callahan isn't there, it doesn't really mean that they're not going to.
Well, we could see, this is the thing. You could spend a lot of time debating that.
Remember, he was at Cam's. Brian Callahan.
Right. You could spend a lot of time,
Willie. He's not going to be
analyzing whether it's the right move or the wrong move, and I feel like a certain host might spend some time on that. It has spent some time on that in the past.
Willie, he's not at Shedeur Sanders.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
I'm just saying, Willie. 2 of the 3 heads are not going to be there. That means
sending signal.
Hey,
what do the signal
maybe he
mean?
doesn't like Shedeur. He doesn't like Shedeur Sanders.
Maybe. Or maybe he wants to act like he doesn't like Shedeur. Isn't there a lot of that? I can talk about a lot of cafeteria lunches at school where like, well, maybe he's just acting like he doesn't like her.
Yeah.
He really likes her. He likes her. He just won't admit it.
Yeah. Do you think that Chad Brinker is sliding a note over to Shedeur Sanders? It's on a piece of loose leaf paper. He's opening it up and says, "Do you like me? Yes, no, maybe."
Is it loose leaf paper with like the 3-hole binder?
Yes.
Or is it the spiral notebook?
3-hole binder.
Kind of messy.
It's the spiral notebook with
torn out.
Yes,
I hate
exactly.
Not perforated.
Right.
I hate that.
Where you can get. Yeah. I had a teacher that was like, if you turn in an assignment
with that
with
stuff on there,
spiral notebook and that stuff, I'm giving it back to you.
Rightfully so.
I'm not
I did the same too.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Willie bet me, and I guess Derek too, a side order of fries.
Yes.
That Jared,
hold up.
That Jared will spend a significant portion of his program.
Do I not
on
get
this
a
topic?
side?
Oh yeah, you're a part of it.
Okay, I was about to say.
Okay, I'll get you in on it.
That he will not. That he will
spend a significant portion of his program talking about the fact that Chad Brinker.
The topic will be attendance at Colorado Pro Day.
Brinker here. Callahan.
Roll call.
Callahan.
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 He's sick. My best friend's
boy.
brother's girlfriend told me he passed out at 31 Flavors last night.
Listen, you're right. I don't think he will do that.
Is Ben Stein still with us, by the way? Is Ben Stein
question.
still with us? Because could we hire Ben Stein to show up to Colorado's Pro Day
Or I thought you just said to Jared Show.
or to Jared Show? That's good too.
Jared,
Callahan.
Jared, I don't think you will do that. Just so you know, I don't think you will do that. I don't think you will make it that
Ben
big
Stein
of a
is
deal.
80 years old. He is still with us.
Good.
Good for Ben.
good. Perfect.
He's available. Let's call him up.
I used to love the show Win Ben Stein's Money
Yes.
with a young Jimmy Kimmel. That was
This is true.
to me, that was the introduction of Jimmy Kimmel into American life.
Okay, so if Callahan was there, but Borgonzi wasn't, would that be an issue? Would that be an issue?
I feel like he would spend 2 segments on
Or
his show.
Brinker.
Ooh.
Or Brinker. Because what was the first report was by TD that
Tehran tweeted on Wednesday
Mhm.
that Denard Wilson, Mike Borgonzi,
Mhm.
Tyke Tolbert, among others,
Mhm.
will be at Colorado's Pro Day today,
Mhm.
but not Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan. Albert Breer tweeted within the past hour and a half or so that Chad Brinker will be at Colorado's Pro Day. And to throw even more intrigue into the mix, here's a tweet from Jeremy Fowler from within the past hour. The Tennessee Titans are en route to Boulder late morning. Weather delayed, leaving Thursday.
So you know what? TD may not have been wrong.
I'm not. I'm not.
No,
I'm
no,
not.
but yeah. What I'm this is not about.
I am
whether
not criticizing
This
Tehran
is
at
not
all.
about TD whether he's right or wrong, but it could have been just when he reported it. It could have been just that. But then after the weather delay, and it was like, figure we're not going to be out there 2 days. We're only going to be out there a day, not even that. Then okay, now I can go. Maybe it was that. Maybe he couldn't go yesterday, but he can go today.
I just want to be clear. I am not criticizing Tehran.
Yeah, I'm not
Davenport.
either. I'm not either.
Reports change.
Yeah, it
I know
does.
full well.
Mhm.
I've reported things one day that are different the next day.
But making it a big deal could be just be, well, he couldn't go yesterday. Today, because of the delay, they're traveling out today. He can go today. So maybe it's just that so you don't have this conspiracy theory like, whoa, at first he wasn't gonna go. Then now he's going, but Brian Callahan is not there. Ooh. I mean,
I
it could
think
just
they
be as simple as what I said.
I think they want people wondering what they're going to do. And they're going to schedule a workout
Mhm.
in Nashville, right?
Yeah.
Next week.
So at the end of the day, they will have good evaluations on all these guys, all the Buffaloes.
But I can't see this. I can't see this happening right here. Say if they do draft Shedeur Sanders. Say if they do draft Shedeur Sanders. Or if they don't, they pass on him and he turns out to be great. I can hear Jared saying, he didn't even go to his pro day.
And
Either
therefore-
way.
Right.
He didn't get the head coach. He deserves to be fired. He wasn't even at their pro day. I can hear him saying that.
Of course. Of course.
But
He
not
will.
today. But I can hear
He
it.
will.
If something happens drastically like that, either or, I can hear him bringing that up.
Okay, so let's just make this bet clear.
Yes.
How many segments must be devoted to this topic for it to count?
Ooh, more
That's a good
than 2.
No.
Uh,
No.
More than one?
One full segment. At least,
No,
at least one
because
full
his
segment.
segments
I
are
think
shorter
2.
than ours.
I
His
think 2
segments are shorter than
segments
ours.
is a good.
At least
Yeah.
half of an hour.
Yeah.
If it's over half of an
Because you
hour,
can spend one segment on like one topic and it'd just be a throwaway.
Well, if they're all there,
Mhm.
then it's probably not a story, right?
they're all not there. Is Callahan not there?
Callahan is not expected to be
Yeah,
there.
he's not.
The,
Yeah.
the,
Yeah,
the
well, okay.
biggest
Then
change is that
then
Chad
it's-
Brinker, who reportedly was not going to go,
Yeah,
and I
he's going
believe he
there.
told Jim Wyatt at the league meetings that he was not planning to attend, is now reportedly attending, according to
Okay.
Albert.
Yeah, I think we have enough material for 2 seconds.
Maybe a whole hour.
So
Yeah.
you said
I'm
2 or
confident.
more?
I'm confident. Yeah. 2 or more.
2 or more? Okay. So I mean, we don't win. It's the odds are against us because it's really just one segment. So I'm saying over 2, Willie, not 2 or more.
2 or
over
more.
2. No,
Is
no,
this-
no.
Can this be part of Take It to the Bank later?
Yeah, it can.
Yeah,
You know what?
Boom.
All right,
Yeah.
that's it. That's
That's
what
it,
I'm
yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause this is the last weekend of the season. for
Yes,
Take It to
yeah.
the Bank.
Oh.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
we said Final Four
We
would be
do
the
need
last
to.
one.
We
Yeah.
might have to add some props in here or something.
That could be one.
That could be one of them.
Absolutely. There we go.
And speaking of
Nevertheless.
attendance, I know where Teron Davenport is today.
Of course.
At City Field.
Absolutely where he should be.
I
For the
see
Mets home
gear.
opener, I got my Mets hat. I may or may not have a Dwight
Yeah,
Gooden
dude,
jersey
that-
underneath my
okay.
pullover for the Mets too.
Oh, I see
I-
I see that. I see that orange.
I
I
just
see
wanna-
that Met orange.
I didn't want to be too loud about it, but I do have it. I do have Dr. K.
Oh my
I'm
god.
representing Dr. K today.
Well,
My goodness.
He has the orange. I
Well, let
see
me
it.
let me ask you this. So the Mets have played 6 games this season.
Right. All on the road.
So this is the home opener at
Home
City Field. I'm curious how much excitement there is for the home opener when they've played 6 games versus
Huge.
when. Okay, fair.
I think all parks like that. Like today's opening day at Fenway.
Mhm.
That'll be a big day.
Mhm.
Opening day at your home park is a big thing.
Yeah.
Do you disagree?
I think
I mean,
yeah,
not
I think it
everybody.
is.
Everybody's got to have their day.
But why do they wait 6 days? Like it should be
It's
no
just
more
the
than 3
schedule.
days.
You know, you have a.
This shit, like a season opener, you gonna make your fan base wait 6 games? Is that the Met song?
Oh man, this is not and this is not a good one. This is from like '86, right? Oh man, yeah, this is not my favorite, but I do know that one.
The most important question:
Let's go, Mets, go.
Will Grimace be there? Will Grimace?
No,
be?
I don't believe Grimace is going to be there.
Oh.
Although there,
what
there
makes
will
you
be
believe?
Some,
What
be a
makes
fan.
you believe
There'll
that
be
he's
some
not going to
fans
be there?
Well, there'll
Because
be some
that could be a
fans.
part of, take it to the
Take it to the bank.
too.
It could,
Yeah,
because the game doesn't start until after our show.
exactly. Yes.
I will predict that there will be some people wearing Grimace costumes that probably don't get the vibe that it's probably time to move on. to
Over
something new.
under. What you think about that? Think about the over under on people who will wear Grimace attire.
outfits.
Yeah.
How many times SNY will show someone in a Grimace costume
See,
on opening day?
That's why I think their production and Gary Cohen, if I read his vibe, I
Mhm.
think he's ready to move on from the Grimace. I really think he's ready to move on. And so he will discourage the
Mhm.
camera people from showing Grimace people he doesn't want to egg them on
Uh-huh.
because I think it's time to turn the page, and I agree with him. So that's a factor. That's a
Yeah.
factor.
How many?
And
of
I'm
them
pretty
do
sure they will
show?
not bring the actual Grimace out there, which has started the whole thing, right? Last year, for people that don't know, the Mets were playing terrible. They were way deep in the standings. They brought the Grimace out to throw the first ball, and they all of a sudden started winning. And that was the thing.
Mhm.
Just like the St. Louis Blues, who have now won 11 straight games, they brought in Joe Boo from Major League, and they put it in the clubhouse, and they're like 15-2-2 since they brought in Joe Boo. I don't know if it's the actual Joe Boo from Pedro Serrano from Major League
Uh-huh.
or just their own rendition of Joe Boo, but it's
Yeah.
worked.
If it's
Whatever
working,
works, right?
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
We learned that in Bull Durham.
Yeah.
Don't
there
mess
you
with
go.
the winning streak.
Nope. Don't touch it. So
To me, the finest moment of last baseball season was the actual Grimace, and I say
Yeah.
actual because it's somebody in a costume, but the actual Grimace walking onto the subway with all of those Mets fans, and it turned into a rave in the subway car. Grimace, Grimace, and they're all hopping around. That's my favorite. So I'm happy for you, Willie. I'm happy for
Yes.
you that it's opening day at City
And
Field.
Tehran is representing. That's exciting.
What do you think Tehran's wearing? Which jersey is he wearing?
Oh,
today?
that's a good question because he's very he thinks a lot about these things. He thinks a lot about the style. Well, we might have to consult Tehran and get him to take a picture just to see what he's wearing. That's another possible take it to the bank. Is he
Yeah.
wearing a Mets jersey? What color could the Mets jersey be? And I also did think about you guys last night when the Dallas Stars came out in the neon uniforms. I almost said same color as lemon lime Gatorade. That
bit-
would have got it.
no. Oh,
But not enough people would have gotten the reference, so I passed.
the bit will never die.
It will never die.
It will never die.
Because I could have started the debate right there.
I stopped by.
Dallas Stars, their color's green.
Oh,
That
man.
looks an awful lot like lemon lime Gatorade.
I
That's
stopped
green.
by a convenience
Highlighter.
store on my
Yep.
way over here, and I saw the Gatorade, and I said, "Man, that's absolutely yellow. What
Yeah.
the hell was Willie talking about?"
Exactly. Willie, you can't get around it. There's too
And
many
this was-
people saying it's yellow.
A month and a half ago. It will never die,
Yes.
as far as I'm concerned. But we've got a lot to discuss today. We will talk about Colorado's Pro Day, which is starting up relatively soon. I believe the text I got from Jared Stillman earlier today was that the coverage of the Pro Day starts, I want to say, at 1:30 on NFL Network. I will confirm that as I dig through my phone later, but we'll talk about that. The final four,
buildup.
the final
I thought
four.
the NFL Network has. They asked the question on their show just now. What do you want to see from Shedeur Sanders? Him playing football.
I actually want to see him doing something other than
Like we
playing
get
football.
so deep into this buildup of the. Ooh, what do you want to see? He's just going to go out there and throw.
Oh man.
Him
One
playing
text-
cards with
I love
Travis Hunter.
it. We got to get through 3 more weeks
was-
of this stuff.
I want to see him doing a backflip while throwing a slant.
Or what did Anthony Richardson do? He did like a round off back handspring or something and like fired the ball off the jumbotron. Like he did something crazy, right?
It's
And
worked out.
everybody's
It's
like,
worked out well
"Ooh."
for him
Yeah.
so far, though. Maybe that's not
And
all of
Milton
it.
threw the ball 80 yards, 90 yards.
Okay,
Something
to-
like that. He
to
did he
confirm.
did something
Yeah,
pretty
Milton
crazy.
threw the ball like
He
100
threw
yards.
he
didn't
threw the orange.
Yeah, 100 yards.
yards.
Yeah. I think it was like 150, Willie.
No, I thought it was 175.
This was somewhere in the ballpark. That's why now he's going to be starting quarterback for somebody else. They traded-
Somebody traded
Yeah,
for Joe
they
Milton.
traded,
Yeah,
yeah.
how about that?
I heard he's going to be a starter.
He might. He
To
was in the last game.
confirm-
He got the Titans the first pick.
You got a point there.
We,
To
we have to
confirm-
forever be grateful for Joe Milton.
Shadeur's Pro Day starts at 1:30 on NFL Network. We will
Okay.
discuss that later in the program. The Final Four resumes tomorrow with 2 excellent games. We will discuss that. Of course, Ask D-Mace at 12:30. Take it to the bank. The final Take It to the Bank of the season at the end of the program. And a really interesting story I stumbled across yesterday about why teams struggle to evaluate quarterback prospects and why it happens so often that teams miss on the quarterback position in the draft. That is obviously a relevant conversation for those of us here with the Titans expected, for now, to draft Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. 615-737-1025. But before we get to any of that, an interesting exercise that Mina Kimes and Field Yates did on Mina Kimes' podcast about the NFL draft. I do want to get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. And let me tell all of you to tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on Gwinnett. Pregame begins at 5:50 and the first pitch is at 6:05 or 6:05. That is correct. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. Tune into Totally Hits 93.3 tonight as the Nashville Cats take on the Oregon Lightning. Pre-game starts at 6 and kickoff is at 6:30, with coverage also available on the Totally Hits 93.3 app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. So Mina Kimes of ESPN, she has her own podcast. It's called The Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny. Lenny is her dog. And she had on Field Yates, NFL draft analyst, and they did a mock draft. They went through the entire first round of the NFL draft. But I thought what was interesting, so Mina presented the choices to Field Yates. She went team by team and said, okay, Field Yates, the Titans are number one. Should they take Cam Ward or Abdul Carter? And she did this with every team. So, for example, with the Giants at 3, she said Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter. With the Jags at 5, Mason Graham or Will Johnson. The Raiders at 6, Ashton Genty or Tet McMillan. So she made Field Yates choose one player of those two. So for the Titans, the question to Field Yates was, should the Titans take Cam Ward or should they take Abdul Carter? This was Field Yates.
Are you going to take quarterback Cam Ward out of Miami or Abdul Carter, the edge rusher from Penn State?
Yeah, I'm going to do this exercise, by the way, Mina, sort of like a blend of what I would do and also how I think things are going to shape out. I'm going to go with Cam Ward. Some have described Tennessee as backing themselves into a corner with Cam Ward because they've signed Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle to join Will Levis in their quarterback room right now. I look at it more as this team is hyper-focused on Cam Ward and has been for quite some time, and they believe that he has some magic to him, some true number one overall pick ability. So I'm going Cam Ward here. As great as Abdul Carter is, the Titans obviously need a centerpiece, and this is a true blue one quarterback class. Don't bypass that one option in Cam at that first overall selection.
So that was Field Yates, and I don't think Titans fans would be surprised by that. We've talked a lot about Cam Ward, but the Abdul Carter portion of this is interesting to me because if you had asked Field Yates or Titans fans a month ago about the same question, I think it would be pretty split because although Abdul Carter, he did not participate at Penn State's Pro Day. He's recovering from an arm/shoulder injury that he suffered during the college football playoff. There was also the testing at the NFL Combine that revealed a stress reaction in his right foot. A lot of people are wary of Abdul Carter. I've heard Jared and I believe Paul Kaharski say as well that they would take Abdul Carter off the board because of these injury concerns. I believe, Derek Mason, you have also said this as well. But it does not appear that Abdul Carter is going to slide significantly because of these injuries. Mock drafts that I read have Abdul Carter going number 2 to the Cleveland Browns. Mm-hmm. So I do find this fascinating because we've talked about what's the word I'm looking for here, or phrase? Let's call it a lack of enthusiasm about Cam Ward, right? Cam Ward is a solid prospect, but we've talked and listened to and dissected things that people have said about, is Cam Ward number 1 overall pick worthy? I think Abdul Carter as an athlete is absolutely number 1 overall pick worthy. He may be the best prospect at any position in this draft, but the injury concerns are keeping people at bay. So that's the question I have for all of you and for the two of you. If knowing what you know, Cam Ward or Abdul Carter, if that was your choice, you had to choose one at number 1, where would you go?
Again, I just look at this, the history, the short or immediate history of the Tennessee Titans, and them, taking chances on injured player, whether it be through free agency or the draft. I know there are a few that have worked out. Whether it's the running back or Jeffrey Simmons. I know both of them had, medical concerns, but it seems to be working out for the both of them. And obviously, Jeffrey is one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League. So that speaks for itself. But I think, they've had two of those guys that sort of hit that were concerned about it, that we were concerned with when it comes to injuries. But you look at the other guys that they went out and got that had injury history. They were big names and it didn't work out, whether it be through the draft, which is the reason why this team is in a position that they're in, one of them, or through free agency. When they've went out and they've sort of taken a chance on an injured guy, it hadn't worked. And we can go down the list with them.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we can go down the list of injured guys. We can do it. We can have a whole show of it, at least an hour. So that's why when I look at Abdul Carter, as good as he is, I will continue to say this draft is going to be a critical draft. And the Titans don't have any margin for error when it comes to trying to rebuild this roster. So as good as Abdul Carter is, and he may be, he has injury concern. Your defensive end, if you got foot injuries or shoulder injuries, I'm not going to completely take him off my board, but I'm not taking him that high. I'm not. Now, if he falls down, if we choose to make some moves and we move down, or we move from the, second pick, first pick in the second round, and find a way to move up because he's falling, okay, get him. But he's not going to be my number one guy. He's not, because of the foot injury and the shoulder injury. The shoulder injury, okay, I've seen him play with it. But when did this foot injury occur? He needs the ability to get low and turn that corner. And if he's already having foot injuries right now, Willie, I'm not sure if I can go down that road, especially not with that pick, number one.
You could talk yourself into anything.
Yeah.
We've certainly found that out. You make a pretty compelling argument. I guess my question would be, what information are we going to find out between now and the draft on Carter? Because we know his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, is a wily veteran who's done this a lot of times. And it is a strategy just to be mysterious, right? And just say, look, I'm going to let my guy be evaluated on his merit. And we're not going to come forth with, he's not going to work out. Like, that could happen, right?
Yeah.
If you want to draft him, draft him. And that could cause all kinds of mystery and tough decisions. Or it could go the other way, where he doesn't work out and blows everybody away and does all kinds of medicals and says, here's the medicals. Look at the foot. It's totally healed. No issue. Have your doctors look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. And that might change people's perception of whether he is damaged goods.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wonder, is what are we going to find out about Carter? I feel like his name is going to surface back up before the draft starts.
So he said at his, Penn State's pro day, he
And
did not.
This was a while ago, right?
So Penn State's pro day was last week, I want to say. So he said this at Penn State's pro day about the foot injury, the stress reaction in his right foot. Quote, I found out when they found out about it. He said, I never had no symptoms, no pain. Doesn't bother me now. It didn't bother me during the season. So whatever they feel necessary for it, I don't feel any pain right now. No surgery or nothing like that.
So somebody will probably talk themselves into saying, hey, the foot's not a big deal, and take him, because they won't be able to ignore the upside that he has.
But my thing is that, okay.
I'm not saying that will be the Titans, but I'll
Yeah.
say somebody's going to do it. Somebody will do it.
And then I would ask the question, well, okay, if you don't think the foot is a big deal, why didn't y'all mention the shoulder back then? When this whole foot thing, why wasn't it more so? Because now it's he didn't work out because he was rehabbing his shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, y'all didn't make that a big deal. The big deal was the foot. So are y'all still just giving him more time to heal that foot? Insane, because he did have an injury, which he continued to play with in the playoffs. He did have that injury, so we're going to say he's rehabbing, which he probably is rehabbing it. But is it more so the foot than anything?
And I also, here's where I stand on this. Absent these injury concerns, Abdul Carter is absolutely worth the number one overall pick in the NFL draft.
I think that's the compelling part about Mina's
Right.
question.
Yes.
Right. So that's the question, right? Like, Abdul Carter, shoulder injury, arm injury, stress reaction in his foot. Those are concerns. But a healthy Abdul Carter is undoubtedly a prospect worthy of the number 1 overall pick. There are a lot of questions, however, about whether Cam Ward, a healthy Cam Ward, is worth the number 1 overall pick. So that's the question.
Right.
Do you take if you're looking at the quarterback prospect who's healthy with a lot of questions about whether he is worth the number 1 overall pick, or the edge rusher who does have some health concerns, but as a prospect is absolutely worthy of the number 1 overall pick?
That's the dilemma of staying at 1. And that's also the dilemma. If everybody else sees it that way, Adam, you probably aren't going to get a lot of phone calls of huge packages to deal that first pick. Because it's not a year where because I haven't even heard. Now, maybe Travis Hunter today, puts on a show and has everybody buzzing and like, hey, now there's the guy you need to consider.
Because he hadn't even ran yet. So
he hasn't,
hadn't done anything.
So that's a mystery a little bit, because for a long time it was him at the top of a lot of mock drafts. That would be another good thing for the Titans. You want candidates that appear to be worthy of the first overall pick.
In Mel Kiper's latest big board, which he published on March 31st, so that was Monday, Abdul Carter is still number 2, despite the issues with the arm and the shoulder and the foot. So that's to your point, Willie. That's what intrigues me about this question, is that if Abdul Carter did not have these injuries, and it's a big if, but if Abdul Carter did not have these injuries, I think there would be a lot of Titans fans that would say, I would rather have Abdul Carter. He seems more like a sure thing at number 1 overall than Cam Ward. The injury situation, it clouds it a little bit. So that's the question I have for all of you at 615-737-1025. It's a binary choice. Cam Ward or Abdul Carter? That's the question Mina Kimes
at
asked.
1, right?
At 1.
There's no like sliding.
No, at number 1. That's the question.
Because I know D-Mace would be working that. He'd be trying to work that.
So that we want to make it unambiguous. At number 1, Mina Kimes asked the question to Field Yates, Cam Ward or Abdul Carter. I ask the same question to you. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven, of course, by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let me tell all of you that later today on 1025 The Game, tune in for Vanderbilt baseball as the Commodores take on the Florida Gators. David James, I believe this game has been moved up. Am I correct on that?
Wait, which game?
The Vanderbilt game. Pre-game begins at 5. Oh, maybe that was yesterday's game.
Yeah, no. It's Saturday's games.
Okay, I'm sorry. So pre-game.
Get some rain in the forecast.
Yes, pre-game for tonight's game. I just want to make sure I give everybody the right time. Pre-game today begins at 5:15. First pitch is at 5:30. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com.
Any concerns at all if he can't work out for teams before the draft?
No, Hannah, I'm not worried at all. I know Carter said today at his pro day that he's 100% from the shoulder injury. This is just a precaution, and he's proven it over the last 3 years at Penn State. The tape speaks for itself, and hearing today that he's 100%, that makes you feel good as a team that you're not going to have a surgery after the draft or when you get into training camp that would maybe delay the start. And we would have seen something come out of the NFL scouting combine where he did medicals. We would have known, hey, the shoulder or the foot injury are more serious than it looks. But I think it's a very telling aspect of the pre-draft process. Abdul Carter's only meeting with 4 teams: the Tennessee Titans, the Cleveland Browns, the New York Giants, the New England Patriots. Those are the teams that have picks 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the first round of the NFL draft. So he obviously feels very comfortable and confident that he'll be drafted in the first 4 picks, as he should be, because I do think he's the best player in this draft. And he said it great. A pass rusher can impact the game in so many ways. He showed that even when hurt. If you go back to the bowl game against Notre Dame, he took over that game with one shoulder. So, guys, I don't have any concerns at all.
That was Matt Miller on ESPN talking about Abdul Carter. And by the way, because I was hella confusing going into the break, Vanderbilt's game today is indeed at 5:30. First pitch at 5:30. Pregame at 5:15 on 102.5 The Game. Where I was confused is that tomorrow's game between Vanderbilt and Florida has been moved up to noon to accommodate Florida basketball. So there's not a viewership conflict with Florida basketball playing Auburn in the national semifinal in San Antonio. So today's Vanderbilt game is indeed at 5:30. Tomorrow's game has been moved up to noon.
I have played in some Vanderbilt baseball games and announced some Vanderbilt baseball games that conflicted with huge March Madness contests. I was on the mound pitching for Vanderbilt, got a win in Tuscaloosa against the Crimson Tide on the day that Christian Laettner hit the shot against Duke. So I unfortunately did not get to see that game, which is one of the greatest college basketball games of all time. But I was happy to get the win, though, against the Tide.
I don't have a recollection of that shot. Now, I've seen it hundreds of times over my lifetime, but I don't have a recollection of it when it actually happened because I was 2 years old.
Yeah, yes. But
I wasn't
know,
born.
Remember?
Just know your papa.
I'm sure your dad has
just
told
know
stories.
your papa was there cheering them on.
As I understand it, my father flipped over the back of the couch in excitement, up and over.
And did not injure you.
Exactly.
Were you nearby? Were you like
did he have you in his hand?
Yeah.
I hope I was sleeping. I can't imagine what time this game was on, but I hope I was sleeping if I was 2 years
It would have
old.
been an early evening game.
Yes.
And that was regional final. That wasn't Final Four.
Right.
But SEC baseball does sometimes conflict with always conflicts with the Final Four. So that's interesting because there's weather. There is weather in the forecast tomorrow too. Of course, Vanderbilt has the turf field. So hopefully they'll get them all in.
So the question I had for all of you at 615-737-1025 was the same question that Mina Kimes had for Field Yates on her podcast as they were doing a mock draft. If you're the Titans at number 1, this is not a trading down situation. You are the Titans at number 1, Cam Ward or Abdul Carter. And you heard it from Matt Miller there. He said, Abdul Carter, he's the best player in this draft, which is what makes this question so intriguing, as we talked about in the previous segment. That Abdul Carter is a prospect worthy of the number 1 overall pick. But the injury concerns, the arm/shoulder, the stress reaction in his foot, is causing people to be a bit concerned about whether he will be ready once the season starts. So let's get to your reaction again at 615-737-1025. Mark in Paris says, because of the injuries and our track record of drafting injured players, I would go with Ward. My preference is to trade once or even twice in the first round. Well, that wasn't the question, Mark, but you said you would take Ward. Totally fine. Kevin says, if you watched Carter's last game, his shoulder was killing him. He couldn't even rush from the right side. I'm with D-Mace too. Many edge guys to strain for him. Last thing the Titans need is more already injured players.
But I know that there is, and D-Mace just laid it all out, the history. There is kind of oh boy, this guy's had injuries. But can't we maybe have some faith in the doctors to be able to heal? I do worry about if a shoulder is there, are you more prone to future shoulder injuries? I think that's a good medical question that I can't answer. Right? Like I know in hockey, shoulders are big, right? Because you're getting banged into the boards a lot, and if it goes out, there are guys that try to play through it. There are guys that have maybe a short-term procedure so they can get back out there quick. And then there's the long-term sometimes. Let's say, you knock it out. And I had a pretty significant shoulder one, my famous pickleball injury a couple years ago. I mean, they can knock you out for 6 months, right? But that would be my question with the specific, because I don't know the specifics of his shoulder injury. But if it's loose, are you now, does he have it fixed so he's going in with a full bill of health, or is there going to be an issue going forward every time he gets slammed down to the turf or he gets twisted around? Is that going to be a liability going forward? That's a key question.
Because
same thing with the foot. You pointed out the same thing. If your foot is always an issue, that's going to, that's not good.
Exactly, especially not for edge. Well, really not for anyone, but an edge rusher. I mean, a lot of that power, all of it really comes from, the waist and below. So if you come in with foot injuries, it's sort of a red flag for me, especially at that number 1 pick. But correct me if did the article suggest that he's okay now? But he's not going to run, or he didn't run at his pro day, and
he did not participate at Penn State's pro day. He watched the pro day. He was there, but he did not do on the field.
But does it say that he will not work out for other teams either? He's done with working out, period. Will he? Because I would have to assume
the clip from Matt Miller said that he's only meeting with the top 4 teams in the NFL draft.
Okay, so I would tend to believe that if he's going to meet with those 4 people, he didn't work out, they're going to ask him to do some type of workout. He's going to have to show them that he can simulate these movements that he's going to have to do in a game. I don't know. Let's just say this. The Titans are not in a position to say, you know what, Abdul Carter, when you come here, you don't have to work out. We just want to interview you and go over some film. We watched enough. We're good. The Titans they're not in a position for that. They can't do that.
Because I could play the other side of the coin and say they drafted Jeffrey Simmons knowing he was going to miss the first maybe full season, right? He had the torn ACL,
but that was a team that was coming off of a playoff, right? Yeah, they went to the playoff previously before that, I think. Jeffrey's only
2019.
Yeah, they were a good team. They were a player. They
were picking in the middle of the first round. They were 9-7. I can't remember.
They were a playoff team. I think they were a playoff
playoffs
team.
or just missed the playoffs. Was that the year that Mariota missed the last game against the Colts? That might have been that year. Either way.
But I'm saying he was under a different situation.
Team.
Yeah.
They weren't a bad
team. They
team.
were not a bad team. The roster was pretty good because they were still in that mode. Either they were just starting to win or where they were in that winning mode.
But
so
just for people that have this narrative, and again, someday I'm going to teach a media class. We're going to talk about narratives because I think you hear this coming up every day on our station. Don't draft those injured players. Why? How could they draft these? They drafted Jeffrey Simmons. He was injured. He's turned out pretty well.
Yeah. But with the number 1 pick, that's something different. It's like,
you want all of the light bulbs lighting up.
Yeah,
right?
If I'm picking you number 1,
pick.
especially when it comes to
it is different than the 15th pick or whatever.
Yeah, when it comes to injuries, I want those to be. I need to know. Like, I need to not be fearing that you could potentially hurt your foot again, or right before camp, you got to have a minor surgery and you're going to miss camp, a portion of camp, if not all of camp, and then sort of work your way up to the first or maybe even the second game. I can't play with a scenario like that with the number 1 pick. Now, if we move down 5, 6, 7, then okay. And if he slips, okay, that's more I'm more willing to think about it then. But at the number 1 pick, no, I can't.
I still think the central question in this is who is more worthy of the number 1 overall pick? A quarterback who everybody seems to question is not a number. It seems to question is a number 1 overall pick worthy quarterback, right? I tongue-tied myself as I was saying that, but you get it. We've talked a lot about Cam Ward, and he's not as good as the quarterbacks who were drafted last year. And If he were in the quarterback class last year, this wouldn't even be a discussion. He wouldn't be anywhere near the number 1 overall pick, but he's there. Would you rather have that? Or would you rather have a prospect where it should seem a prospect who seems to be a consensus first or second prospect in this draft, even with the injury concerns? Like, how much are you weighing the injury in all of this?
I'm weighing the injury more than anything. And Paul was talking about something to this effect. Not, I don't think necessarily um, about the injuries, but they were talking about the quarterback. They said, listen, this year's draft isn't last year's draft. So stop comparing this year's draft to last year's draft, this year's crop of quarterbacks to last year's crop of quarterbacks. It's not like that. But that still doesn't mean to me, if you feel strong about Cam Ward, you can't draft Cam Ward. It's like, oh, I'm not going to draft Cam Ward because we don't think he would have been a top 4 guy in last year's draft. Well, there probably would have been a lot of first picks in the draft in recent years that probably wouldn't have measured up to those guys. But that don't mean you still don't draft the number 1 because you believe in him. And they're right. So just in order to have that, you got to stop comparing this year's draft of quarterbacks to last year's draft of quarterbacks.
615-737-1025. We will continue to take your thoughts on this subject at 615-737-1025. But I do want to introduce something for our next segment. The acronym QUIBR. What the heck does that mean? I'll explain coming up next. 615-737-1025. It's time for the 4th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Cromwell Media, along with partners Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor, are proud to announce we will be back at Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us and a few guest media members, athletes, and musicians as we raise money for Folds of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Okay, so before the break, I introduced an acronym to all of you that you probably have never heard of because I had never heard of it before yesterday. QUIBR. And that stands for Quarterback Unique Instant Buyer's Remorse. At CBSSports.com, Chris Trapasso, who is one of CBS Sports' NFL draft analysts, wrote an interesting article with the headline, How Teams Struggle to Evaluate and Find Quarterback Prospects Who Become Stars Quickly, and Why It Happens So Often. So Trapasso looked at a couple of categories as to why NFL decision makers seem to have issues finding these quarterbacks that are worthy of being top picks in the NFL drafts. So let's start with the first section, which is titled Misinterpreting Production. Trapasso writes, quote, "We all understand how college football is ahead, in quotations, of the NFL when it comes to schematic wrinkles. And at the collegiate level, 90% of the time, those new ideas are offensive-centric. Their typical aim is to maximize production in the face of lacking athleticism or pure talent. The read option, the spread formation, the air raid, the RPO, just to name a few. They were all born in college, all put new stressors on a defense, and all generated radical boosts in efficiency for the players within those schemes that pushed the limits on offense. But they rarely created high-caliber prospects out of thin air. There's a reason draft analysts stress traits almost ad nauseum, because in most instances, those quarterbacks can't take the advantages afforded to them in their collegiate offenses to the NFL. Trapasso notes college football legend Tim Tebow couldn't stick as a passer in the NFL. In fact, none of the top 6 in career passing yards in college football history have experienced clear success in the NFL. Of the top 10, Bo Nix is the only viable starter. Too often production at quarterback, even the advanced metrics, is misinterpreted for professional promise when said production in college is due to everything but the quarterback's individual ability.
Yeah, that's why you have guys, whether it's Tim Tebow or Graham Harrell or, name a few of the Alabama quarterbacks that have these gaudy numbers, and you look at the system that they're in, and it doesn't project to the NFL once they get there. That's what make Cam Ward so intriguing, because the stuff, the numbers are there, and no, he may not look like Joe Burrow or this guy, but he has those traits. He has some of those traits that we're looking for. Some quarterbacks don't have them. Some quarterbacks just can put up big numbers, and that doesn't mean you're a first-round pick.
By the way, the top 10 quarterbacks in passing yards in college history: Case Keenum, Dylan Gabriel, Timmy Chang, Landry Jones, Graham Harrell, Sam Hartman, Bo Nix, Ty Detmer, Will Rogers, and Kellen Moore.
Right.
Bo Nix was the only top 10
picks,
pick. Bo
right?
Nix was I think.
Bo Nix was late first round, right?
No, Bo Nix was top 10 pick. Top 12 picked last year.
And Bo Nix also played a lot of games.
Yeah, played a lot of games.
So that has something to do with that. There is, after reading this article, a little bit of Captain Obvious in there.
Mhm.
Sure.
Would we agree?
I mean, yeah, but this is where, this is why when you can't just look at the numbers or the wins and losses, because, you hear, well, he shouldn't be a top 2 pick. Look at his record. They bring that up about Shedeur Sanders. He didn't beat anybody. Look at his thing. Every player doesn't have a resume like Tim Tebow. But look where Tim Tebow is as far as, look at what his career was as far as football. He didn't have much of a career in football. So the wins and losses, I'm not so much on that. Do you have the trait? And this is what keeps someone like Cam Ward in the discussion of being the number 1 overall pick. He has some of those traits that we talk about. They say it. They've said it. He has some of those traits. But, does he have them all? Probably not. Is he a Joe Burrow type of quarterback? No, but he has some of the traits. So we're going to work based upon that, not look at solely the numbers.
One section of this, trait degradation. The third element, well, we've skipped the second. We'll go back to the second. The third element of QUIBR is what I'm labeling as trait degradation. And it's simple. College quarterbacks appear to have standout traits on the collegiate football field, yet when the talent level is raised exponentially in the NFL, those standout traits are not so standout anymore. The author uses Marcus Mariota as the example. And Willie, you do have some quibbles with his explanation.
To a degree.
So let me read it first. Marcus Mariota is a fine example here. Sure, he tested like an elite level athlete after a decorated Heisman winning career at Oregon. So much of his game and with the Ducks and appeal as a prospect was predicated on keeping the ball on zone reads and outrunning everyone in the Pac-12. Even with 4.52 speed, that never felt that fast on film. Mariota wasn't more athletic than everyone else on the field anymore once he got to the NFL. Those 30 to 40-yard scampers essentially vanished. He had to rely on his arm much more, and his arm strength was average by NFL standards. And suddenly, his offensive coordinator wasn't throwing something completely new at the opposition every week. Mariota's cautionary tale is twofold. He had incomplete experience at Oregon, which is the second one, incomplete experience at Oregon, and he flopped because of trait degradation in the NFL.
I mean, he played 41 games of college football. That's pretty good, I would say. As far as the running, I do think Marcus Mariota was a good athletic runner in the NFL. Mm-hmm. There were times where he was playing through a pulled hamstring or something. There were times where he played where he wasn't able to run. I can remember one specifically. But if you look at his rushing numbers, his rookie year, he had an 87-yard touchdown pass. That's pretty athletic. He had his
touchdown run.
Yeah. He had a 41-yard touchdown catch his rookie year. He had a high of 41 yards running his second year, 34, 27. He was a good runner. Mm-hmm. I disagree with that. I thought he was very athletic. It was much more his limitations as a passer as to why he didn't make it.
And
so
by the
trait
way,
degradation, I'm not buying that particular one on Mariota.
But here's the thing with that. You only degraded the trait. The only reason you did that was because you didn't use it.
Right.
The trait
he averaged over 5 yards per carry.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
he
is
just
that,
didn't run very
exactly,
often. Yeah.
Is Oregon made sure they incorporated that into their scheme.
Yes.
So it was a
he
trait.
Ran for over 700 yards all 3 of his years at Oregon.
Why do you think Lamar Jackson is the perfect example? The trait degradation didn't happen when he got into the NFL. Why? Because they continued to use it.
Yes.
They used it to their benefit. Exactly.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Titans chose not to use it as a weapon.
They were worried he's going to get hurt.
Exactly.
All of that stuff.
Baltimore they didn't want him to get hurt, but they were like, listen, to help him develop as a quarterback, we got it. What did I say yesterday? Let's just continue doing some of the things that he's comfortable with. He's comfortable with that. And then as he started to grow, as he did, what did we do? We started removing those. Well, we're not going to do that as much. We're going to change coordinators because now he's developed into a passer. So when you have guys like this, I go back to what I think it was Bill Parcells or either Bill Belichick that said, don't tell me what he can't do. Show me what he can do, and let's do that. And let's do it really good and develop him. And in the process, let's develop him as a player.
All right, you tell me if this is trait
degradation.
Yards per attempt for Mariota as a runner in the NFL, 7.4 yards per carry, 5.8 yards per carry. This is year by year, 5.2, 5.6, 5.4. Those are his 5 years as a Titan, as a starter. The issue wasn't that he couldn't run.
No, the issue
Like
was
he could still run. It was number of times they chose to run him,
Mhm.
staying healthy, and as does point out, limitations of the pass.
His
But
yards
they-
per rushing attempt in college, by the way,
Mhm.
7.1, 7.4, 5.6.
So
Right,
really,
but
he
there,
was
there
2
is
yards.
going to be
Exactly.
a drop off.
But those were
unless you're Lamar
designed.
Jackson.
He had a
Yeah.
lot of design runs. So
And he was on a loaded team that was
just
full
faster
of
than
athletes
everybody.
all
Yeah,
over the
were
field. They
just
were a
faster
great
than-
team.
They might have been one of the fastest teams ever. But I look at it and say, well, listen, the one thing that you should have been paying attention to, that should have sort of, gave you pause, and maybe it did, is that he couldn't throw outside the numbers. The minute that was one of the things that we brought up in the show back then, like he has improved. Look at all his passes.
Yeah.
They're in between the numbers.
I think that was an issue.
Yeah.
And I think the other intangible was I don't think he had the culture driving instinct that Mike Borgonzi seeks
Mhm.
with a high first round pick either. Is that fair to say? I don't think he was a eye of the tiger.
Not
Everybody
Borgonzi, but
follow
whoever
me.
was-
Mariota, right?
Yeah, Mariota. Yeah,
I mean, why he wasn't a great starter?
exactly. Yeah,
I think that was an issue, right?
yeah. I think
I mean, he's a
the
great person.
leadership,
He was a hard worker, great person,
how he led.
but it wasn't a driving of the
Mhm.
bus kind of leadership.
The other aspect of QUIBR, that's a mouthful, is incomplete experience. Yeah, Quibber. I like that. Quibber is incomplete experience. And I don't think it means the number of actual games that they played at the college
Mhm.
level. The author writes, quote, quarterback evaluations go wrong because of too cozy collegiate environments that don't provide real life, quote unquote, real life experiences for a passer and mask his weaknesses in the process. And the first quarterback mentioned is Mac Jones, because Mac Jones had some gaudy numbers at Alabama, correct?
Mhm.
The problem, Jones threw to 4 future first-round picks during his time as the Crimson Tide starter: Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, and Devontae Smith. On every dropback, Jones had an unprecedented advantage in his receiving core no NFL team could ever replicate on Sundays.
Right. This, again, I don't think this breaks new ground. I think this is a little bit of Captain Obvious.
I know, but it's still interesting to
But
see
yeah,
it laid out.
because
like
as
this.
as we try to bring it back to Cam Ward or Sanders, whoever you want to say, I think some of these principles apply. I don't think NFL teams are ignoring this
Mhm.
at all. One that jumped out to me too along those lines is the amount of time that you have to throw. The percentage of time that you're pressured tends to be low on loaded teams. I would imagine Mac Jones, while he's throwing to all these amazing wide receivers, also had pretty good amount of time to throw.
Offensive
So the
line,
author
correct.
uses Zach Wilson as an example,
Mhm.
coming out of BYU. He writes, for example, in 2024, half of the 42 qualifying quarterbacks were pressured on at least 35% of their dropbacks, which represents a drastic difference over the course of an entire season compared to Zach Wilson seeing pressure on fewer than 22% of his dropbacks with the Cougars in 2020.
Okay, that brings up this issue because when you're talking about Shedeur Sanders, he didn't have a loaded team. He had Hunter, yes. He didn't have a loaded team
Yeah,
full
yeah.
of first round picks.
Not a good offensive
Yes.
line at all.
His offensive line was bad. They got better last year, but his offensive line, let's just frankly, they were bad. But yet and still, he went out there and he played well, exceptionally well. He wasn't the reason why they were losing games. He was in an environment that wasn't cozy. Yeah, his dad was on the sideline. That part is cozy. But when he crossed over that line and he stepped on that, his dad couldn't help him no more. We saw that firsthand. Why? Because the offensive line was bad. But yet and still, he goes out there and he completes damn near 70% of his passes. And he's making it. He doesn't have the strongest arm, I know that. But he's making all the throws. So, yes, when you talk about a Mac Jones and those guys, and you look at it and you say, well, that's the reason, the incomplete sort of evaluation.
experience
Yeah,
is what it's
incomplete
called.
experience. I can say Shedeur Sanders had the complete experience. But they used it. It's like they don't give that they don't make that a plus for him.
What's interesting here is the author, Chris Trapasso, uses an example of one quarterback prospect who fell victim to all three of these: incomplete experience, trait degradation, and misinterpreting production. And it was Sam Darnold coming out of USC. I'm trying to find, I had to scroll up, so now I'm scrolling back down. There are instances when all three of these components mix together to blind us completely. Sam Darnold exemplifies this, throwing to Juju Smith-Schuster in 2016 while being pressured on just 24.9% of his dropbacks. Many misinterpreted Darnold's production while he got incomplete experience, then clung to his status as an elite quarterback prospect throughout the following season at USC. In that season, Darnold led the NCAA in turnovers, showing clear signs of problems against pressure, but it was too late. The collective mind of the NFL draft world had made up its mind that overconfidence suppressed clear indicators of massive issues against pressure from Darnold and his good but not great athleticism. Now, we've seen what Sam Darnold did last season, but that Sam Darnold coming out of USC was used as an example in this article of all of those factors combining to maybe misevaluate.
You know who else went through that, I think?
Who's that?
Matt Leinart. Same thing. He had future first rounders. He had the Heisman Trophy winner on his team. One of the greatest players in college football history he had on his team. And he had hell of a wide receivers. And all of that, he still he wasn't the first pick in the draft, but he still ended up as a top 10 pick.
He slipped a little bit, but he was still a pretty high first pick.
Why? Because of the year prior. But all of those indicators, because he turned out to be a horrible, and I mean a horrible.
Yeah. Darnold has done a lot better than him.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's an interesting argument because Darnold, I don't know if Trapasso is a Jets fan.
Or is he just talking about is he just talking about number one picks?
Because
I think he's talking about top quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And he used Darnold as an example of all of the different things combining. Right.
But Darnold still kind of got there. Like he's
eventually
Matt Leinart didn't get there at all.
Yeah, Leinart never got there. So I read the whole thing, and he makes some points that I think are valid points. I don't think it's any earth-shattering, groundbreaking thing. Is he suggesting that Cam Ward, like I would love to have seen him bring it back to Ward and Sanders?
Well, why don't we do that quickly?
Yes.
So the misinterpreting production. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. None of Cam Ward's weapons at Miami are expected to be high draft picks, correct?
I think that's fair.
Yep.
And he was at Washington State before, not a loaded roster at that point, and did well, brought them, he rose them up, right?
So it would seem that Cam Ward would not fall victim to that, the misinterpreting production, because he wasn't playing, again, if I recall correctly, was not playing with anybody who was, he didn't have the receivers that Mac Jones had at Alabama. So, so you can't use, it doesn't seem that you could use that against Cam Ward. But what about the other two? What about the trait degradation? Or the, what was the other one? I've already forgotten.
I think
what it
the
was.
trait
was the Q, the U, the I.
Quibber.
I think the trait degradation.
Well, that was incomplete experience is the one I was just referencing.
He definitely has a lot of experience.
Yeah, he has a lot of experience. Now, in regards to the trait,
I guess you could probably throw that. You could probably throw the previous point into the misinterpreting production and the incomplete experience, right? Because Cam Ward still put up lofty numbers, although
no matter where he was, the numbers were really good. UIW 2 years, Washington State 2 years, and then Miami. His numbers have been always good.
One texter says, for me, you were all making a case for Will Levis to be the Titans quarterback at least once per year to see what he can do with a decent offensive line of receivers that will get open.
Oh boy. But
that was not my intent.
One thing that did come up in my mind when he was discussing the trait, an elite trait, like he used Johnny Manziel in there too, which was, he was such a unique college player. Johnny Manziel had a lot of issues about preparing and stuff like that hurt too. But as far as this elite runners kind of thing, Cam Ward is really not a runner. That hasn't been discussed very much. But if you take a look at his rushing yards year by year, he is not a runner. Even though you see these great plays where he extends plays in the pocket, makes these great throws down the field, that is one tool that early on in your career, we saw it with Steve McNair here. Definitely saw it with Lamar Jackson, as you pointed out. But as you continue to grow into the role as a quarterback, it does help you be effective early if you can run. And Cam Ward is not a runner.
Or do you have escapability?
And I think now that's different, right?
Out
I think he may have that in the pocket.
Extend the play. You don't necessarily have to run, but extending the play to a point where now you're finding open receivers. So you have the trait of, being able to extend the play, escape the pocket, and not necessarily run. I want to believe that. If given the opportunity to run, he will. In this league, like any other quarterback, you put them in that position to run, they're going to run. Now, how good of a runner are they? It just depends.
In college,
he wasn't a runner at all in college.
He had. Now, remember, in college, the rushing stat is weird because the sacks
and all that other stuff.
So if you only look at yards from scrimmage, take away the sacks, he had only 58 yards rushing, 144 in his 2 years at Washington State. 58 the first year, 144, and then last year only 204 yards at Miami. Now, a lot of that, there's some quarterback sneaks. Like he had some touchdowns in there. I'm sure there were short yards.
8 touchdowns.
8 touchdowns and then 4
touchdowns last year, yeah.
But by and large, those are not the numbers of a running quarterback. It's not even close to a Mariota or Lamar Jackson or guys like that. Not that he has to be great, but we saw with Ryan Tannehill would be a great example of being able to get the timely run is a tool that should not be completely ignored. And Cam Ward really doesn't have that.
615-737-1025. Now, we all know what Quibbr is. QUIBR. 615-737-1025. Perhaps we can revisit this. We can dive deep into Cam Ward as the NFL draft approaches, which mercifully is less than 3 weeks from now. 615-737-1025. It is time to ask D-Mace. 615-737-1025. Call us, text us on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHonda.com. Derek is ready for your questions. Also, this week's Nashville's Best Deal comes from Bad Axe Throwing Nashville, downtown's largest axe throwing venue and your go-to spot for food, fun, and vibes. Enjoy panoramic views of the city, a killer soundtrack, craft cocktails from the full bar, and a Northwoods-inspired menu with a Southern twist. This week, score half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Head to thegamenashville.com/deals and grab yours now.
He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw. Touchdown, Derek Mason.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
Midfield, and there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D-Mace.
We'll welcome you in.
Now, D-Mace on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
D-Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. It is indeed time to ask D-Mace. So call us, text us, 615-737-1025. Derek is ready, willing, and able to answer your questions. But before we get to them, we do have an update.
Mhm.
So before, at the beginning of the program, at the beginning of the program, we had
It
a little,
never fails.
we had a little side bet. And Willie, what was the bet that we made?
We bet a small order, a medium order of fries.
I think you called it a side order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
so that'd
can-
be medium.
The size depends on the restaurant. I suppose.
significant. Yeah.
Yes.
To the three of my colleagues here, that Jared will spend at least 2 segments on the attendance at the Colorado Pro Day.
So if you missed it,
Of
More than
the
2.
various Titans
More than 2 segments.
brass.
if
right?
you missed it,
because this is that there was news, right, that you read at the beginning
Albert
of the show.
Breer of Sports Illustrated, because Chad Brinker, the supreme ruler of football, was not expected to attend Colorado's Pro Day. Albert Breer tweeted 2 hours ago that Chad Brinker will indeed be in attendance at Colorado's Pro Day. At 11:52 a.m. at Jared Stillman. Why did Chad Brinker change his mind when earlier this week he was not scheduled to attend? And the first response underneath is the Brian Windhorse meme where he's got his 2 fingers up in the air. Like, why is this happening?
So you have
Dun,
that,
dun, dun,
and that tweet
dun,
doesn't even address the fact that Brian Callahan is not expected to be there. That is red meat for Jared. So I feel pretty good about how that's trending.
We will find out what happens. All right. The first Ask D-Mace question from an unnamed texter.
Let's do this.
Derek, what's your favorite cocktail and how many can you drink?
Oh man, goodness gracious! Now,
How many can
my
you drink?
age,
That could be incriminating.
Yeah, honestly, I'm really like a 2. My limit is 2. Sometimes I even barely finish the 1, but my max is 2, and typically it's Grand Marnier, something nice, nice and smooth. You know, I don't need the mixers and all that other stuff. I don't need the fancy drinks. Not to say that I haven't gotten them before, but I don't need the fancy drinks. If I just went out with the fellas, just give me a Grand Marnier, and I'm sipping on 1 for a good while.
Yeah.
And then if the conversation, I might get that second one, you know.
We used to talk about buzz maintenance,
Yes, you got to have that.
moderation, but keep the buzz moving a little bit. Sip on it. Yeah.
Just keeping
that's
it there, right there.
Unlike-
Water, drink, water, drink a little bit more.
So you're not going to ask me to pass the Cavassier?
Oh, no.
No. Okay.
You know, the trendy thing when you go to a game now where you put the person on the Jumbotron
Uh-huh.
with a beer
They chug it.
and they chug the beer. Of course, Taylor Lewan has made this famous with,
Mhm.
you know, chugging it through the catfish or
Ugh.
whatever, some of the things he does.
It's nasty.
But the other day, it was like a week ago, a former Predators captain, Kimo Timonen, was in the house and they showed him he had a cocktail. He didn't have
Ah.
a beer. But he tried to chug a pretty hard
Nah,
drink. Like, and it was you could tell it was like, man, I can't do
I
this.
read that question at the break.
It's a
and
dilemma.
And it brought me back to New Year's Eve 2014. I was still living in Washington at the time. The next day, I was scheduled to cover the Winter Classic, Capitals and Blackhawks. And so I would have been 25 at the time. And I fancied myself a bourbon drinker because I thought I was fancy.
Okay.
I had way too many. Was drunk as a skunk. And at one point, 2 of my friends who lived in Northern Virginia, but a little bit of a ways away from Washington, they had rented a hotel room because they were going to the hockey game the next day. I ended up crashing unexpectedly in their hotel room.
/ passing out.
At one point, I was lucid enough, I guess you could say, to turn on the shower, lay face down on the bathroom floor. I had a bit of an icy hot situation because it was the cold floor and the hot water. And I passed out with the shower running. My friend
fine.
woke up and eventually walked into the bathroom because she was like, "Why is the shower running?" and noticed me face down. And fortunately, I had a towel on, so she didn't see anything. But
Oh my goodness.
but then I covered the game the next day, and then 2 months later, I moved here, so it all turned out okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
So you would be able to accurately answer how many can you drink
Not
because you
too
push,
many.
you push the envelope.
Yeah. Me,
Yeah.
it's 2. I'm 2, man. I can't go. I don't see how they do it nowadays.
Let's go to James on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. James, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, D. Mace. How
Good
you
morning,
doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Fine, thank you. I wanted to ask you, y'all were talking about Cam Ward's extending the play and elusibility earlier. What historical quarterback does he remind you the most about when it comes to that? Is it Danny Fouts or is it Peyton Manning? Because he could still be a great quarterback without being able to run. He just has to have that, like you said, extending the play. And I'll shut up and listen, sir.
Thank you for the call, James.
Thank you for the call. Yeah, I would equate him to, again, it's just one of many things. To me, he reminds me of a C.J. Stroud or a Patrick Mahomes or a Joe Burrow. From this sense, I think he has the ability to run if he needs to. I do believe that, but he's one of those guys that wants to. He has this innate ability to escape the pocket, but he's not looking to run. He's looking to extend the play so he can find somebody down the field. That's what he reminds me of. Not to say that CJ Stroud can't get a first down or can't run if he needs to. Not to say that Patrick Mahomes, he's shown that he can run. We know Lamar Jackson can run. Josh Allen, he didn't run much his senior season. Now, the year before that, I think he had like 500 yards in college. But he didn't run much his senior season as far as yardage. I just want a quarterback to have the ability to get outside the pocket, to escape the pocket, buy a little time, and if he needs to run, then you run. Or if we choose to run an RPO, you have the ability to run an RPO, but I don't want to do that too many times in fear that because he's not used to running, that then you put him in a position where he's going to get hurt. Someone like Lamar Jackson or someone like Hurts or even Josh Allen, since he's gotten in the NFL, they design plays for you. So you know that's going to be a part of the package. So you know that, yeah, I may open myself, but we're going to design these plays where he knows that you get all you can, but get down after that. If you want to do that with Cam Ward, I think he's going to have the ability to do it, but I think he has that trait when you're comparing him as far as that area of his game. I think he's more so in the line of Mahomes, CJ Stroud, guys like that can run, but are looking more so to extend the play rather than run.
615-737-1025. We see your calls and your texts. We will continue them on Ask D-Mace. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. We were trading war stories about being drunk during the break, many of which cannot be repeated on air.
There were some good ones, though.
I had to PG up the story I told.
Yeah.
But I did lay on the floor, on the cold floor with the shower on. It does work. It does work. It's like icy hot. You got the cold floor, you got the hot shower. I recommend it.
I'm not gonna try it. I'm not gonna get.
I'm too old for this ish.
inebriated.
I'm too old for this ish.
Yeah.
It was okay when I was 25.
Yeah.
Now I'm 36. So
I'm
that's
50
that's
I'm
It's,
hard.
you can still do it. It's just
Nope.
not recommended.
I don't really even drink that much anymore to begin with, but that's beside the point. Adam from Portland is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Adam, thank you for waiting. Please go ahead.
I got one for D-Mace, but I'm glad you brought up the chemo Timonen thing because I was like, he's got a full drink, and it looks like a double whiskey sour. I'm like, it looked hard, and it was dark, so it wasn't watered down. I'm like, if he drinks this, I'm going to puke for him. Like, it looked hard. It looked incredible. But, no, but those are hockey players. He should have done it. No, so, D-Mace, this is my problem, all right? So the league has turned into something completely different from when you played, from when I loved it. And I don't think I should apologize for saying I miss big hits because I do. I miss big hits. Like, I don't want anybody to ever get hurt. Like some of these guys, you might as well just take a sledgehammer and hit them in the head the way that some of the hits used to be. But I do miss, like, serious, like, you would never be able to go across the middle against certain teams because they would take your head off. And, like, that's not even a part of the game or a thing anymore. And I was wanting to see if there was some part of the game that you missed that's, like, you know, that doesn't get talked about as much. But, like, I do miss big hits.
Thank you.
Thanks
I
for the call,
appreciate it, Adam. I'm with Adam from this standpoint. Listen, I don't want anybody to get hurt, and Adam expressed that. I don't want to see no career-ending injuries, but you do miss that that part of the game where receivers and quarterbacks are aware. I can't just be throwing the ball in here. Because I don't want to put and Tom Brady has talked about this. Because he said, listen, it should be up to the offense, the quarterback, to not put his receiver in harm's way than it is for the defensive back to to have to really pull up. Now, there are some obvious ones, but the flags that are being thrown a lot is just clean hits. But in today's football, they're deemed, even if they're not hard hits, they're deemed, no, this hit is illegal. You can't do it because of where you hit the guy or where you graze the guy. You may not have even been aiming for that part of his body, but because he catches the ball and duck down, or because a quarterback throws it in there at an angle or depth where now he has to jump up for the ball, and you went to angle one way, and because he had to jump, now you hit him in a different area that is deemed illegal. That should be up to the quarterback to see that. That's the part that I miss. Like, you ain't gonna just, when guys make a catch in the middle now, it's, oh, look at the fabulous catch he made. It's like, dude, I can run in there not even thinking about getting hit anymore. Like, if you hit me, you're not gonna hit me. You're not gonna hit me and try to catch it and sort of prepare myself for the hit. But I understand why they are doing it. It's to protect the player, and I get it. And I'm all about that. But that part I do miss. Like looking at a game and saying there's no way he's throwing it in there, because back in the day it was Pollard. Ain't no way he's throwing it in the middle when Pollard's sitting there at safety. You ain't throwing that ball in the middle because he's gonna hit you legally, but it's gonna hurt. You can't even hit a guy hard anymore without them. The minute those pads go real loud or too loud, and the crowd say, oh, the flag is coming. It's coming. And that's the part that I miss. Like, let a clean hit over the middle be a clean hit without everybody having to look around and say, oh, was that and the players are looking, look at what, and the fans are going crazy. No, that's just a hard, good hit. That's not an illegal hit. That part I do miss.
It's been legislated out of a lot of sports in different ways.
And I get it.
And it's for the right reasons.
Yeah.
But you do lose something with that. Like the battle, the collision at home plate, right, between catcher and base runner, or the takeout at second base, or the battle for the inner part of the plate between the pitcher and batter. Am I throwing at you? Or no, you're getting too close to the plate. I'm going to back you off. all of that stuff. Hockey,
Mhm.
definitely with the fighting and the liberties, that's been muted a little bit, not fully. It's the struggle to try to keep it in as much as you can while not sacrificing safety.
Yes.
And I think of any time there's a play one-on-one between a defensive back and a wide receiver, and if there's even a little bit of contact, the play is blown dead, and the receiver is looking around doing the flag throwing thing.
Right.
I mean, even in basketball, right? Look, I subscribe to the no blood, no foul. That doesn't work in the NCAA or the NBA, I guess.
Street ball.
Street ball, right? Shout out NBA Street. That was a fabulous
Love
video
that
game.
Yes.
No blood, no foul. But it's the same thing. There's just a little contact, and someone's sitting on their bum, just looking around for the ref and complaining for the ref. You want a little bit of the action. You want that physicality. That's why we like sports in the first place.
Yeah, that physicality has been sort of muted some. And I the reasons why I know, and I'm not going to try to litigate whether those reasons should be good reasons or not. They are trying to preserve the game of football as much as they possibly can. But just that part, I think they went a little bit too far, and I kind of sort of missed that. And I missed the actual kickoff return rules. I missed them. So dude, to play, and now I know they're trying to incorporate it back into it to get more, but they totally ruined that whole experience. They really have, and again, I understand why, the concussions and everything, but and they know they've ruined it. They know it so much so they're implementing more rules to try to get the ball to be returned. Y'all messed it up. Y'all effed it up, really. That's what y'all did.
Joey from Bellevue, because we started with a question about alcohol, so why don't we finish on a question about alcohol? Joey from Bellevue wants to know, Derek, who would win the 1025 The Game beer pong tournament?
Ooh. I think because he's sort of, I think, still in that scene a little bit, somewhat. I think Chase may win.
That's who I was thinking.
I think Chase may win,
I think
because he has to go to a lot of these things, these functions and everything. He has to be the great representative as he is for the station. And
you remember this, though, D-Mays, for a brief time.
Yeah.
For a brief time, he retired.
Oh, yeah.
From that lifestyle. Remember?
Yeah, you're right.
But he made a comeback. And I feel like since the comeback has happened, he has got to be considered the favorite.
Yeah. He would, to me, he would be the favorite. I'm trying to think of it. Rex, he got a family. Jared just got a new kid. No. Adam, his kid's still young. Willie, he's been through it.
I've been through it. I feel like I'm a veteran that can still hang. As a minor league baseball player.
I think you would tap out at some point. You just be like, man, David may. David and Big Joe.
Youth is on their side.
Yeah.
Right?
Youth is on David's side. I even think, oh man, Frazier,
yeah.
Frazier looks he's sneak. You got to watch Frazier.
Yeah.
You got to watch Frazier.
Gives you that innocent,
he gives you
wide-eyed,
exactly
enthusiastic, but behind the scenes,
I think he can chug a couple beers. Yeah.
My first thought was Big Joe, because I can imagine Big Joe showing up to a frat somewhere, even at his age right now.
His game is
he's looking at life at a party in a good way.
Him walking in and go, I got next. I got next.
He seems like Big Joe walk into a frat party and say, "Give me that beer. Let me show you how to really drink it." He'll just chug it down.
Doing a keg stand.
Yes, he becomes. Damn, what movie was that where the older guy came in or the parent came in and just became the life of the party in a good way? God, it's happened in so many movies, but the one particular movie I'm talking about,
Talking about Old School?
Well, it happened in Old School, but now he went streaking after that. I don't think Big Joe was going streaking.
I don't know about that one. I had a few conversations with Big Joe. I think that
you're not ruling it out.
I think Big Joe could be Van Wilder, the guy who's still in college, just way past his expiration date at college, and be the life of the party.
Yeah.
So I might go with Big Joe on this one. I think Chase is a popular choice,
Yeah.
I may go Big Joe.
Joe
on
and
this one.
Chase as a tandem
Oh,
They would
at the
clean
frat
up.
scene.
They
I
would
think
clean
they
up.
start up interesting conversations. You know,
Uh-huh.
I think they could draw some attention.
They would be those ringers. Have you who the commercial with Willem Dafoe?
They would be the wedding crashers.
Willem Dafoe.
That's
And
what they
who,
would be.
what's the name? Who's the actress who was on?
They'd be Dumb and Dumber.
No, who is? Why am I thinking about it? Right? I
Nah. I'd give more so wedding
Catherine
crashers.
O'Hara. It's Catherine O'Hara
Oh, she's
and
funny.
Willem Dafoe.
Uh-huh.
And it's like they're at a pickleball thing, and she's like, "Play you for those ultras," and they're obviously ringers, and the other people are like, "We're pretty good," and Willem Dafoe's like, "Fascinating," and then they just clean up. I could see Big Joe and Chase being the ringers on a beer pong tournament.
Yeah. Because then you know Ricky would be there as well. So
Tyler
you
says.
cheer them on.
Tyler
Have your wingman.
says.
exactly.
Tyler says we're sleeping on Robbie. We're sleeping on Robbie here.
Robbie he has responsibilities. He has too many responsibilities. So
Sometimes
nah.
those guys can sneak up on you. You saw what happened.
How about this one from Adam? Adam texted back in. He said, "I feel like Jake, I assume he means Jake Lyman, would be the guy that showed up to the beer pong
That's a
party
good one.
with khakis and a polo tucked in and drink
Yes.
ice water and
Now-
make some not really funny joke about it and awkward it up just because he's that kind of a nice
And that
guy.
is an important skill, is the actual, like, there's one thing being able to hang and drink and all that stuff, but the beer pong, you got to have experience. It's been
Yeah.
a long time since I played beer pong.
Yeah, I would be out.
You put
quickly.
the emphasis on pong there. You went beer pong. instead
Well,
of
because
beer
it's a
pong.
skill. It's a game.
Yeah.
You got to be, if you're good, that makes you,
Oh,
like, Jake might be the least removed from a beer pong game.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
Unless you've been hanging out at the
Chase, man.
frats.
Chase.
Maybe Chase has been hanging out at the frats. Yeah.
who knows what Chase is up to this weekend?
I'm
He
not
wasn't
a
here
college
today.
kid on our staff. So
Oh, man.
And now this is with Chase, right? We've seen him bowl. We've
Yeah.
seen him shoot basketballs.
Yes.
We've seen him try to do curling.
Yes.
Does he have the beer pong skill?
I think he does.
Okay.
that's
he
the
does.
one
Yeah.
I think skill he has.
Yeah, I think it's
He's
one of
He's
the
a
skills
Jedi.
he does.
Jedi pong.
Have. It's the pong skill.
We'll do a beer pong tournament with yellow Gatorade on the show. 615-737-1025. Great questions for Derek, as always. Thank you for your participation. 615-737-1025. I think, gentlemen, that we are in store for the most epic Final Four, maybe ever. And we'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D. Mace Finnegan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We are proudly presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Something else that's not ordinary. This Final Four, which starts tomorrow, Florida and Auburn in the first game, Houston and Duke in the second. As many of you all know, this is just the second time in the modern tournament era that all 4 number 1 seeds are still standing on the final weekend of the season. But when you dig a little bit deeper into this Final Four and these combatants in the Final Four, this to me may be the most competitive Final Four we have ever seen. And if you use the KenPom net ratings, the efficiency ratings on KenPom, these 4 teams are 4 of the highest teams in the KenPom era, which dates back nearly 30 years. All 4 of these teams have a legitimate claim to winning the national title. I don't think you'll see any upsets. If Houston beats Duke, and Duke is the favorite to win, if Houston beats Duke, it will not be a shocking upset. Auburn and Florida have already played this season. Florida went to Auburn, smacked them around. If Auburn wins on Saturday, it's not going to be a huge upset. It wouldn't be an upset anyway because Auburn is the number 1 overall seed. But I think any outcome, guys, I think they're all in play, right? Like if Houston beats Duke and Auburn beats Florida and Houston beats Auburn, Houston's a really good team. Like I do not see a scenario where we have an underwhelming or undeserving national champion.
I was looking at the KenPom ratings, and you just kind of gave it the general thought that they all have elite ratings. And I separated it even one step further. They're all top 10 efficiency in offense and defense. Some are a little bit higher or lower in the top 10. Houston, by the way, has the number 1 defense. They're at number 10, the offense. But they're all in that top 10 range. Auburn has slipped down a little bit from where they were at the midpoint of the season, where they were heading towards maybe a historic level, especially offensive efficiency. It's dropped a little bit. But at the same time, they're all way up there. So I agree with you. I cannot, there's not a big underdog. There's not an unexpected guest. All 4 teams could win it. So I think we might see a classic or 2 in there.
You look at these 4 games, and each one of these teams, well, I think at least 3 of the 4 teams have a player of the year candidate.
By the way, Cooper Flagg, AP player of the year.
Yeah,
Take that, Rex Road, if you're listening in San Antonio.
Flagg, Broom, and Clay. It was the other kid from
Walter Clayton?
Yeah, Walter Clayton.
From Florida.
Yeah, from Florida. Good. So you got 3 out of the top 4 teams. 3 of them have guys that could have won. Cooper Flagg has been named AP Player of the Year, but that are in the running for Player of the Year.
And Houston may not have that marquee player,
but they got some really good
they've
players.
got some dogs on that team. That is a really good team.
So you look at this team, you look at this bracket of 4, this remaining 4 teams, and you're right. This is probably, and maybe because all number 1s made it. In past years, we haven't seen all number 1s make it. So you can there's a difference between, the number 1 team playing the number 3 team. Not to say the number 3 seeded team is a bad team, but the number 1 team made it. They look like the number 1 team, the number 3 team. If they win, that would be considered an upset because they would the 3rd, team ranked in their respective region. But in this one, they're all number ones. And no matter who wins, unless it's just the only thing that I think that would surprise anything is if these games are blowouts, complete blowouts. I think that would be the surprise in it, because I think each team that you play against play great defense, really good defense, but they can also score as well. So when you have that mixture, it's like, unless it's a blowout, you don't see, it's just like, okay, the best team won. I can see that team winning, or I can see that team, not winning.
That's my point, is like, if your bracket has any particular outcome with these 4 teams, I don't think any of them would be shocking. If your bracket has Duke beating Houston, Auburn beating Florida, and Auburn beating Duke, that would not be a shock. If you have Florida beating Auburn, Houston beating Duke, and Houston beating Florida, I don't think that would be a shock either. Like that, and there's been a lot of conjecture about the lack of Cinderella in this tournament. And look, we all enjoy that aspect of it, but I want to see the best teams in the country vying for a national title, which is what you're absolutely going to get on Saturday and in the national title game on Monday. So to me, looking at these individual matchups, the question I have about the first game, which is Auburn and Florida went to Auburn this season, and Florida handled Auburn in that game.
And I would say during that time is when Auburn was probably most prone to getting beat. They had won a bunch of games that everybody was talking about them.
At that point, the only game that Auburn had lost was to Duke on the road in the ACC SEC Challenge.
And so I think they were probably due to lose one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Florida sort of surprised them, caught them off guard. That will not happen again.
The question I have is, you mentioned Walter Clayton, Derek. Walter Clayton has been clutch in this NCAA tournament, in the game against UConn and in the game against Texas Tech. The Gators are able to execute when they're down. That's a great thing to have, right? You're never out of a game. The Gators are never out of a game. But those scenarios are dicier in the Final Four. If Auburn builds a big lead against Florida, will they be able to do it again? I think Auburn, which had a lot of questions. Remember, Auburn went into the tournament having lost 3 of 4. They were still the number 1 overall seed because of their body of work across the season. But there were questions about, is Auburn slipping? And they got a test from Creighton in the second round. But I think Auburn is picking right back up. So I think Florida, I wouldn't test Auburn in terms of falling behind and thinking that you can come back.
I look at this because when the bracket came out, I asked this question. I said, of the number 1 seeds, which number 1 seed you believe, which one of you guys, which number of these number 1 seeds, which one of these number 1 seeds do you feel fall first? And I'm not talking about Final Four, because once that's different. Because especially if all 4 of y'all make it, which they have, it's like, okay, now we just take that question off the board. But when I asked that question, it was at the beginning of it. I said, which one of these number 1 seeds do you feel will lose first, or could lose in sort of an upset form? And first thing I said was Auburn. I just thought Auburn was that team.
Well, Duke had won the ACC.
Exactly.
Houston had won the Big 12. Florida had won the SEC.
Absolutely.
Auburn was struggling down the stretch.
Absolutely.
So it made sense to say Auburn is vulnerable.
Pick Auburn. But what we've seen is the more and more they played, it just seems that they started to recapture what they had at the beginning of the season. And then when they play Michigan State, another team that can kind of play that sort of physical ball, they were able to beat them. Now you look at Auburn totally different. If they win, it's like, okay, well, they should win because they were the number 1 seed overall. But more importantly than that, because of how they started to play once they got into the tournament, minus the first game, I think the first game they may have, it may have been close to first half. That then after that they ended up blowing them out.
Auburn, the game against Alabama State in the first
in
round.
the first half. Yeah,
I do think at one point Alabama State went to the free throw line with an opportunity to take the lead and missed both free throws.
Yeah,
but
so-
they were there. I think Auburn won the game by 20.
exactly.
But it was tight. Remember, Alabama, although Alabama lost in the Elite Eight, we were at Boombas. They were getting the test from Robert Morris.
exactly.
But Auburn, and then they had the game against Creighton, and Creighton was right there. And then Auburn used a run in the middle of the second half to pull away. But it didn't look, there was a time where I wasn't sure Auburn was going to survive the first weekend.
Yeah, so you look at, but you saw as they started to, things started to look a little bit different with Auburn. So when you have when you have Auburn now, they're in the Final Four with the rest of these number ones. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that Auburn wins the whole thing. But I could say that about Florida. I could say that about Duke. I could say that about Houston. But here's the question. Here's a question. And it sort of alludes to the Cinderella, but not in that sense. Moving forward, considering the landscape of college basketball now, do you think we will start to see more chalk, meaning number ones playing each other and people picking number ones now? Because before, it wasn't odd to see no one picking, at least two of the number ones to get out of the Sweet 16. Now, because of the stacking of the team, so to speak, more number ones. I think it's going to change betting. Let's just say that. I think it changes betting.
I think you probably are right. For all the reasons we've been talking about, that the top teams with the most money are now only getting better at how to distribute the money and identify the talent. I think that's going to happen in a lot of the sports. Football would be another one that I think will happen. That being said, here I'm really intrigued about both of these matchups. I had the only number one seed I thought was going to lose in my bracket was Houston, but I had not watched Houston as much as the other teams. And the more I watched Houston, I was wrong about Houston. So I think they're every bit as good. The rematch component of this is intriguing about the Florida Auburn, because I think Florida surprised Auburn. I don't think Auburn, especially at Auburn, thought that anybody could come into that place and beat them as soundly as they did. But maybe as Bruce Pearl looks back on that, maybe he thought that was a good lesson for them to learn. I think Florida too has struggled more to get there in the tournament. They've really had to work for it. They were beat by Texas Tech. Texas Tech had them in the grip, and Clayton sort of bailed them out. The same was true against UConn. I don't know that you can do that again against Auburn, right? That was an incredible individual performance. So Florida, the rest of their guys, I don't think are playing as well as I saw them play in the regular season, where I saw so many different guys make plays. Their depth is really big. I'm not seeing that show up as much. So I don't think Florida has had their A game throughout the tournament, and that would concern me a little bit.
What's also interesting is that Auburn played all three other teams in the Final Four. I can't imagine that's happened very often. They obviously played Florida because they're in the same conference. They played Houston. They won. They lost to Duke on the road in the ACC SEC Challenge. So Auburn has experience with all of the other teams in the Final Four.
Yeah. This is the matchup that I think jumps out to me about about the Houston Duke game. Has Duke, you've watched a lot of Duke games.
All of them.
Has Duke been really guarded well? Who has done the best job defensively on Duke's offense that you could say? Because I think they might face the best defense they've faced all year.
Clemson?
Absolutely. Yes,
Clemson
absolutely. I mean, no question about the best defense they faced all year, because Houston is the best defensive team in the country. Houston reminds me of Clemson. Clemson beat Duke at Clemson. I guess that would have been in February. That's the only game Duke has lost since Thanksgiving, because 2 of their 3 losses came in November, one against Kentucky and one against Kansas. So Houston does remind me of Clemson, and Clemson was able to shut down Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg made a run, an individual run at the end of the game to make things interesting, but that is one of his worst performances of the season. So Clemson, I think, is the closest thing to what Duke has faced with Houston coming up, and Clemson had the right blueprint for that game. So, as I said, Duke, by the way, and we'll get to this at Take It to the Bank, Duke is a 5.5 point favorite.
Yeah,
that seems like a lot to me.
Another component of the Houston Duke game, and Duke has overcome this all year, is Duke is a younger team.
Yes,
and they don't look younger, right? They're awfully good.
Houston has the distinct edge and experience.
Houston has got older guys. I do wonder if they can get a little bit of, neutralizing Flagg by just being tougher, older. Like if anybody's ever watched, it's a great 30 for 30, the Survive and Advance. Derek Whittenburg, who is one of the great stars of that whole documentary, because he's just so entertaining to listen to. He was the senior on the NC State team, and he was talking about playing against Michael Jordan. And when he sits there all these years later, we look back on Michael Jordan as a god, the greatest of all time, all of that stuff. But he was giving his perspective at the time in 1983. He goes, Michael Jordan was a sophomore. I was a senior. I was going to kick his bleep. That's how he looked on him, because he was older. And I do think that Houston might have a little bit of that going against Duke, because physically you're a little more mature, a little stronger. Duke has overcome this all year, but Houston might be able to be right there and slow Duke's offense down, because if you're not a good defensive team, Duke will score 95 points easy. They've got too many guys that make plays, and Flagg is so tough to guard.
And Duke has, and look, one of the things I got wrong and Take It to the Bank, which we'll find out shortly, is I remember I hammered the over in the Duke-Alabama game. Duke completely shut down Alabama in the Elite Eight. So Duke can play defense.
Duke can play D, no doubt. That's an underrated part of Duke.
I mean, Alabama, which I believe is which was the highest scoring offense in the country, scored 65 points against Duke after hitting, 25 threes 2 nights before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's an underrated aspect of it.
And that's the weakness of Alabama was defense. And Duke carved up Alabama when they had the ball. Alabama does not have the defense that Houston has. I am curious too, and I don't know their personnel well enough. How do they choose to guard Flagg? Do they try to put a guard on Flagg? Do they have a tweener that has enough size to bother Flagg's size? Because Flagg can become a point guard, right? If you put a big guy on Flagg, you got no chance, because he's gonna take you to the basket. He's a very tough matchup. So how does Kelvin Sampson try to guard Flagg? Does he have a guy? Because the easiest thing to do is say, we've got a defender who can hold his own.
They have Jawan Roberts, who is 6'8". They could put Jawan Roberts on him.
And he's an older guy who's the type of guy that I'm talking about, but I don't know if he's the guy you would prefer, because you got to guard Duke's big guys too. Duke's got some unbelievable.
Yeah, it's big 7-footer.
That is Duke's advantage, which you saw against Alabama.
Yeah, Houston's not a huge team.
Duke does not start a player under 6'6". I mean,
and Houston, I'm looking at their guys. They're smaller. They don't have a guy in the 6'10" range. Their tallest guy is 6'8". So they're, of the guys that play, their average height 243 is Houston.
I think Houston, they're able to play that brand of basketball, that physical brand of basketball. They were able to play that against UT.
Right. And UT was shook from the beginning.
So it goes back to styles and how the officials are officiating the game. If they officiate the game the way they officiated the game, Houston versus Tennessee, then I'm not sure how much the size factor will come into play, because Houston's a flat out good defensive team, just good. They smother you. But if it's called tight, I can still see it being a good game, but it will come into play later in the game where now you got guys in foul trouble and we can't be as aggressive as we want to.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on the Final Four tomorrow in San Antonio, Florida, and Auburn in the first game, Duke and Houston in the second, and of course the national title game on Monday. 615-737-1025. The Atlanta Braves country road trip is coming to town and teaming up with the Nashville Predators in 1025 The Game. Join us at the BetMGM Sports Lounge inside Bridgestone Arena on Wednesday, April 16th for a Braves watch party as they take on the Tampa Bay Rays at noon. Willie, make sure you're not wearing all of that net stuff. They might not let you in. There will be free giveaways.
I
like
could be the heel that comes in with all my Met stuff. And they can throw me out and have the crowd go crazy. Get out of here.
There will be free giveaways like hats and t-shirts.
You're gone.
Plus, you can win autographed baseballs and free tickets. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events. D. Mace Finnegan and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Hey, tomorrow, don't miss Nashville Super Speedway's pre-race concert contest, Nashville's Next Rising Star, at Dierks Bentley's Whiskey Row from 1 to 5. The contest will be emceed by our very own Big Joe and special guest DJ Mojo. Pray for Mojo. We'll keep the crowd hyped up all afternoon. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com/events. It's about that time. I think Shedeur Sanders' pro day is starting now, or it's already started. Who the hell knows? But it's happening today. And Charles Robinson, friend of the station, he goes on Robbie and Rex Road every week, has a column at Yahoo Sports as Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter take pro day stage. The NFL draft decisions loom for Titans, Browns, and Giants. And Charles Robinson writes in part, quote, Shedeur will have his closing argument in front of representatives from all 32 NFL teams. The expectation is that the session will take on a format clapping back against what some evaluators think are holes in his game. So expect throws showcasing his arm strength and velocity, as well as plenty of movement during the session meant to convey elements of elite athleticism that some believe is not consistently evident on his game tape. It's coming at an important moment for Sanders, as multiple league sources are now taking notice of the abundant homework that the Cleveland Browns and New York Giants are doing on deeper tier quarterbacks like Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, Tyler Shuck from Louisville, and Quinn Ewers of Texas. While the deeper dive in those organizations doesn't necessarily raise a red flag about Shedeur's draft stock, it at least raises a larger conversation about where he would fit in the draft if he ultimately gets beyond the first 3 picks.
I mean, as they're showing Shedeur Sanders on television right now, and they're showing the touch, the accuracy, the ability to escape out of the pocket or buy time, and to find guys down the field. These are traits that, I think evaluators have high on their board when they're discussing whether to draft a quarterback or not. So, I mean, if we're sticking just on not Cam Ward, but Shedeur Sanders, I don't know. I think the movements he's going to do here's and it goes along the lines with the article you read earlier about the traits or over analyzing or whatnot, certain traits or certain things in regards to a college quarterback, why it's been so difficult to project that guy. I think what he's going to show or try to show, and whether it helps him or not, I don't know, but he said it, the athleticism, his ability to move around in the pocket, his ability to make those throws on the run, the rollouts, the boot, stuff like that. He will do, I'm sure, a lot of that. But I'm not sure how much, because those are the things he showed in college. And people still figured he's not as athletic as, say, a Cam Ward or some of these other quarterbacks in this year's draft. So I don't know him doing that. How much more is it going to change the minds of evaluators, on where they're going to draft him? I think if the Giants want to take him, are they going to say, well, I mean, he's not as athletic, so we're not going to take him? Because it's not giving you a true picture of what it's going to look like. You run different when 6'2", 300 is chasing you than when it's nobody.
Yes,
so I don't know how that changes what you think about Cam Ward. I mean, not Cam Ward, but Shedeur Sanders. I'm just saying from a athletic standpoint.
I think my biggest question is, does the narrative change? I think this is what he's predicting. I would hesitate to make a prediction. I'm not knowledgeable enough to know. But I am curious if the chatter, the narrative changes on Sanders after this day. I think that's a very important part of what happens between here and the draft day, from the Titans' perspective especially. I think the Titans would love for Sanders' stock to go up.
Yeah, because somebody did that may
And for that matter,
put a
Hunter.
team, in a position where
What is
I
Hunter
think
doing today?
Cleveland's going to take one of these guys, so maybe I should move up ahead of Cleveland.
Right. Something like that. What is Hunter doing today?
There have been some conflicting reports. I believe it
Is
was
he
initially reported that he was not going to participate, but now he's running routes. So he is running routes at Colorado's Pro Day.
I want to see him
running
run
routes
the 40.
with Sanders throwing, or is that a separate?
No, I think he'll be running routes with Sanders throwing. But I want to see him run the 40. I do. I know I would assume he's fast. I want to see how fast he is, because if he goes out there and he runs a 4.29, 4.3 flat, that may push him up in some people's eyes.
What if he what at what rate? Like, is it a 4? If he runs a 4.4, does that kind of like say, I don't know if I want him as a wide receiver? Like, what's the number if he runs a 40?
What's the cutoff for him
I-
to be a viable wide receiver?
I think if you want him as your number one receiver, because we've already seen Golden, he may be number 2 right now, and he ran a 4.2 something.
I think it was a 4.29.
Yeah, he ran a 4.29. You need to run in a 4.3. You do, at least to me. You can't be clocked at a 4.43 for something like that. No, if I'm going to take you ahead of Golden, who has shown some explosiveness, and he's a punt returner too, something you don't do, and they want you to be this Deion Sanders type of guy. Deion Sanders said he ran a 4.3, right? He said he ran a 4.2. I'm just saying what he said. He ran a 4.2. I need you to run at least a 4 in the 4.3s. I do.
By the way, so Hunter was initially not expected to participate in any on-field work, but he is running routes as a receiver for Shedeur Sanders' throwing set.
So I'm gonna ask the both of y'all, if Travis Hunter runs a 4.45, what are y'all thinking?
If he runs a what?
A 4.45 or a 4.43 or 4 something like that in a 4.4.
If Travis Hunter runs
Travis Hunter, yeah.
Which would not be impressive in your mind.
Exactly. Would it be impressive in your mind, considering what they've hyped him, and he's lived up to it in college? He lived up to it. He was more than that. But if he comes back and run a 4.4, you're thinking like, I didn't expect that. No.
I again, if I'm the Titans, I'm hoping that Hunter really.
I'm hoping he runs a 4.3.
Yeah, like I want people buzzing about him.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want. I want leverage at the top.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Colorado's Pro Day, which is underway in Boulder. 615-737-1025. We will wrap up the week by taking it to the bank. That's coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
All right, let's talk Lee Company. The Predators are back in action Sunday night, not Saturday night in Smashville this time, but Sunday against the Montreal Canadiens. It will be brought to you by Lee Company. Lee Company has been doing business in our area since 1944. They have everything covered. If you're sitting there on a Friday afternoon, you're ready to get out of there, but you're like, man, I'm supposed to get this schedule. We've got to get X fixed at our work. Go right now, leecompany.com, make the online appointment. Job is done. You don't even have to pick up the phone. But if you're a people person and you want to talk, they've got the phone number as well, 615-567-1000. That goes for you at home, you at work, or any of your bread and butter things if you're a homeowner, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. They do a great job. They've got the year-round program called the Home Maintenance Plan that I definitely recommend. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. Lee Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D. Mace Fingan and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan. Derek Mason had to step out for an appointment. So Derek is gone, but we do have his picks. He made sure to give them to the commissioner before he left the building. By the way, Take It to the Bank is presented by F&M Bank. Their mission is to make lives better by making banking easier. Easy for me to say. All right, David James, let's recap last week.
All right, boys. So I have to start with myself just because I was the loser of the week. I went over. Here's the sounder. Let me find the sounder.
Oh,
never a
It was
good
bad-
sound.
It was a very man. I was
Never
so
a good
close. But I said Michigan State would make the Final Four. They did not. It was a sad day for me and all the
And-
other
and
Michigan
Derek
State-
as well.
and Derek. We'll worry about Derek later. But I also had the over 144.5 for the UT UK game. It was so close. It was 143.
Mm.
Oh,
That
so
was
you
the
were
final-
bad beats.
Yeah, bad beats.
You were
man.
bad
It
beats.
was.
Yes.
Have you notified Scott Van Pelt that
I
you'd
have
like
not.
to?
I wish I should have done that, but I forgot to notify SVP and be on the great show there. But I also said Florida -6.5 and Houston -8.5. So a bad weekend for old David, but we'll go to you guys who had pretty good weeks. You know,
I feel pretty good.
Adam, you said UT would cover. I believe
Against
that happened.
Kentucky.
Against
It
Kentucky.
did, absolutely did.
I had listen. I am. Give me a minute. You also said Houston covers 8.5.
Did not.
You said Tech would cover.
I did to say
for
that.
6.5.
Okay.
And then you said the over Duke.
That
and
did
Bama
not
game.
happen.
That definitely did not
So
happen.
2 of 4 for me.
And so you got 6 total points for 158 total points.
Okay.
Look at you.
All right.
Now let's go to Willie.
How many points do you have?
My bad. I'm at 131, so I am dead last. So
Okay.
At this point, I'm just here for fun.
Fair
I'm
enough.
having a great time. That's all I'm here to do.
Fair enough.
I'm here to enjoy some time with the boys. But Willie, you said the winner of Duke and Bama would have over 100 points.
That's the only one I missed.
That was that was the only one Willie missed. He got Auburn -8.5, Purdue +8.5, and Tennessee -4.5 for a total of 9 points.
All right.
And
I'll take it.
You
I'll take
know what the your final score is though? 159.
159.
Okay.
159.
So where am I at?
You're in right now. You are in second place. I'm tracking these. So Willie,
Yes.
you have 159. I have 158. David has 131.
And
And Derek.
D-Mace had Bama -6.5, UT -4.5. He's had Chaz 20 or more points, and Auburn -8.5. He only got one of those, which was UT, for a total of 174 total points.
174.
Yeah.
I think he went 4 for 4 last week. Or did you go
No.
for 4 for 4 last
No, I went
week?
3-1, but he didn't go 4 for 4.
No,
did he?
no. Yeah, he got.
No, not this week. The week before. I meant.
Okay.
Yeah, the week before. Yeah. The week before he had, like this week, he only got.
So I'm still
127.
playing the whole season under protest because I feel like early in the year, D Mace was getting like 6 or 7 ways of scoring.
We were.
And he was working loopholes.
We were slow to close the loopholes.
Yes.
Okay, listen.
But I
I-
give him credit.
I was
He's
told,
a crafty one. He's
I
a
was
crafty
told
one.
to give my points had to be through me.
Okay,
That's all
hold
I'm
on. So let me just make sure I have the standings correct. Derek at 174, Willie at 159,
Yes.
me at 158, David at 131. Okay,
Yes.
so just for all of you out there, this is the last official Take It to the Bank. We will do some national championship game props on Monday, which we will add to our total score. But
Yeah.
this is our last real
For
Take It to the Bank
season,
of
for
the season,
We
not
will
forever.
crown a champion.
Yes, not forever.
And
We
of
will
course, F&M Bank will continue on and make some picks every Friday, but we'll have to start a new season.
Yes.
We'll just do it for week to
This
week.
is the season
This is the
finale.
season finale.
This is the
Yes.
season finale of Take It to the Bank. All right. Well,
Now,
Derek,
how do we find a way for us to be able to catch Derek? That's the question. Can we, especially with Derek not here, can we,
Ooh.
because he's probably not listening, or maybe he is listening, but how can we find a way for if Derek misses all of his picks and we get all of our picks, can we mathematically have a chance? We want drama.
We
right?
do.
At least going into Monday. Can we have a chance to be close enough going into Monday that you're telling me there's a chance?
If D-Mace goes 0 for 4 and you both go
4-0.
4-0,
maybe going
There's
into
a chance
Monday. they'll
going
be
on Monday. There's a chance.
So you're
Okay.
telling me there's a chance.
There's a chance.
So Derek-
Derek.
Derek is in the lead. He gave David his pick, so David read Derek's
Derek is
picks.
screaming in the car right now.
Yeah.
guys.
That's not true.
No, it's impossible.
I'm going to get all my picks right. So D-Mace he's taking Auburn and the points.
Okay.
He is taking Houston in the points. Walter Clayton will lead all scorers in the Final Four.
So I assume he means he will be the leading scorer among the national semifinal games. Like, will Walter Clayton score more points than the other player in the game
He
played
said
on
he will
Saturday?
lead all scorers in Final Four. So the Final Four on Saturday.
I mean, in
Okay.
theory, if you had 60 points in the semifinal, even if your team lost, you could still have that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you scored enough points in the semifinal.
And
Got
his
it.
last one is going over on dunks for Houston, 2.5.
I did find that interesting. So
Are we all gonna do that one? That's a fun prop one there.
we can do it if you want. Or Derek can
That-
take it
that-
as his own.
I might just go ahead and jump in on that one
Okay.
as one of our four.
Okay.
So it's optional, right? Derek took it. I'm going to go opposite because I got to catch Derek. I'll go under. He's going over. I'll go under on Houston dunks.
I will go under as well.
Okay.
I'm just gonna, have fun again. I'm gonna go over. I don't
Okay.
care.
So you and D-Mace are on the other side.
And Derek is clarifying with Walter Clayton. He's saying just in the Final Four.
Just in the semifinal. Game.
Just in the
Okay.
semifinal
Okay.
games. He will be the leading scorer among
The
all
high point
players.
man. Okay.
Okay. So I guess I will have to do 3 picks now because we're all going to include the dunk as one of ours.
I'll give you guys just that one.
Okay, that's fine. Houston will cover against Duke. Duke is a 5.5 point favorite. I don't think I would love if Duke covered. I don't think it's going to happen. So Houston will cover against Duke. I'm leaving it open for Duke to win, but Houston will cover. Cooper Flagg will score at least 20 points. And when you say 20 points, he's averaging 19.5 points per game in the NCAA tournament. So I will say Cooper Flagg will score at least 20 points against Houston. I'm going to go to the women's Final Four here for a second. I'm going to take the UCLA women to cover against UConn. UConn is a 7.5 point favorite. UCLA is a number 1 seed. UConn is a 2 seed, but UConn is UConn in women's basketball.
I do recall there was a big discussion on how they did this draw, and that was part of the discussion, how the committee decided to do the 1 seeds, and that was a big factor.
So I will have the UCLA women covering against UConn, a 7.5 point favorite. So that with the dunk, am I done? Or do I have
You have one more.
Okay. I have Auburn outright against Florida. I think Auburn beats Florida.
Do you want the 2.5 points? They're an underdog.
No, I'm just going to say out. I'll just say
It
out.
wins straight up. Okay.
Win straight up.
The commissioner will take that into account.
I will.
Okay. All right. So I have the under on the dunks. I will say that Houston is going to make it tough on Cooper Flagg. And I believe he averages 18.9 points per game
For the season,
yes.
he averages 18.9 for the season.
18.9. So I
19
will
and a
say,
half in the tournament.
okay, so let's say under 19 points for Cooper Flagg in the semifinal against Houston. Now the thing
Okay.
is, he could score 10 points and have 12 assists and rebounds, but I think they're gonna really do a good job on Cooper Flagg with that good defense. That being said, I've got Duke and Florida in my final in the bracket, so I've got to stick with those two. I am hemming and hawing on the point spread here because I think Houston's going to be right there, but 5.5, it could just be a couple free throws at the end of the game, a desperation shot that misses. So I'm just going to ride it all the way out. I'll say Florida minus 2.5 and Duke minus 5.5. Those are my 4.
David?
My team's on the court.
All right, so I'm going to say Walter Clayton has 20 plus points against Auburn. I think Houston will cover against Duke plus 5.5. And I will also be going to the women's Final Four. I think South Carolina versus Texas will go over 125.5. I like South Carolina. They're really, really good. And also, I think UCLA and South Carolina will meet in the championship game.
So you
on
have
Sunday.
UConn. I mean, excuse me, you have UCLA pulling the upset against UConn, even though UConn is a lower seeded team than UCLA.
Yes.
It'll be interesting, but that'll do it for us this week. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. The Final Four, I'm looking forward to it. I'm also nervous as all hell. We'll see what state I'm in on Monday. We'll see. And if Duke wins on Monday, I'm also going to be a nervous wreck because the national championship game is
Let's
on
just
Monday.
hope you don't end up on the floor of your shower with a robe on, with the hot water running.
We'll see.
Or a cold water running, was it?
It was a cold floor with hot water.
Cold floor, hot water.
A hot floor with cold water would be, I would have to go to the hospital for that one, I think. But that'll do it for us. Stillman and Company coming up next. And on behalf of Derek Mason, who can't be here, be loved, love on your people. Have a wonderful weekend. Peace.